Exposed, spine-chilling urban legends of haunted public transit, discover the sinister secrets. Emily stood on the subway platform, the flickering fluorescent lights casting a ghostly glow over her tired face. She cradled her son Danny's small hand, his little fingers trembling. The city loomed around them, dark and foreboding. Tales of specters haunting the transit system swirled in her mind, memories of whispering voices echoing from shadowy corners. "Just a story," she muttered to herself, but doubt gnawed at her resolve as chilling words reached her ears from a nearby group. "Disappeared." "Just like that," a man said, his voice riddled with fear. "People say the ghost waits for the last train." Emily rolled her eyes. "Urban legends, probably invented to scare the tourists." "Just a train delay, Danny," she assured him, but an unsettling weight settled in her stomach. She could feel the city's pulse, its darkness sleeping and waiting, ready to pounce. As the train rumbled into view, its lights illuminated the grimy walls, the squeals of metal shrieking like wailing banshees. They stepped on, and as it pulled away, she watched the platform recede. The air was thick with tension. Danny pressed against her, eyes round with innocent terror. Emily breathed deeply, attempting to quell her own rising dread. Suddenly, with a jolt, the entire train screeched to a haunting halt. Alarms echoed through the tunnel, a mechanical cry that pierced the darkness. Emily's heart hammered as muffled screams crept in, voices mixed with the screech of metal and the pulse of her own fear. Other passengers shifted anxiously, glancing nervously into the inky depths of the tunnel beyond, where shadows danced just out of sight. "What is happening?" Danny whispered, clutching her tighter. His little body trembled against her, and she felt a chill run down her spine. They weren't safe. Something felt wrong. A flickering light revealed figures darting through the shadows, only to slink away as quickly as they appeared. It was a twisted game of hide and seek, and they were the unwilling players. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." A sudden, bone-chilling roar echoed from the darkness. Emily's heart raced as she grabbed Danny's hand, tearing her gaze from the windows. "We need to go. Now." She pulled him from their seat, urgency fueling her actions. The narrow corridor felt like a trap, tightening around them as whispers hung in the air, weaving tales of betrayal and cover-ups she had never imagined. They burst into a side tunnel, flashes of faces, those desperate, terrified eyes of fellow commuters flitted by in dim light. "They're taking people!" Someone screamed, and panic surged through the air like a live wire. Emily's mind spun. Was it just the stories? Was it real? Every inch she ran felt like a step deeper into a waking nightmare. The ink-black walls echoed what felt like a warning as she stumbled upon an inscription etched into the concrete, the letters writhing beneath her fingertips. A name. A name that curled her blood cold, entwined with the legends. Emily's breath caught as Danny's wide eyes met hers, fear twisting into understanding. Something dangerous was awake now, an unseen menace lurking, ready to snatch them away. In that suffocating silence, the air thick with dread, the lights flickered, plunging them back into darkness, and then, from the depths of the tunnel, that deafening roar returned, swallowing her hope whole. They weren't just in the ghost's domain, they were trapped in a living horror that demanded to be fed. What waited at the end of the tunnel? Emily's thoughts raced as she held Danny's trembling hand, the dark tunnel pulsating with a life of its own. Panic was the only thing she could cling to, a fraying life raft in a sea of dread. The stench of mildew mingled with fear, tightening around her lungs. "Mom, I want to go home," Danny whimpered, his voice a mere whisper against the impending darkness. "Me too, sweetheart," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. But inside, her heart was pounding like a drum. She scanned the narrow passage, every flicker of shadow morphing into something monstrous, something that thrived on their fear. Then came a growl, deep, guttural, reverberating through the claustrophobic space. Emily felt it rattling her bones, a prelude to something vile. The panic coursing through her surged, urging her to move, but where? The weight of the darkness pressed closer, each breath trapping her in a cage of terror. "Danny, stay close," she ordered, yanking him away from the shadow that flickered near the tunnel entrance. They stumbled further into the maw of the underground, adrenaline screaming for action. The team of commuters around them had broken into separate groups, each one screaming or crying for their loved ones, presenting themselves as easy prey to whatever hunted them now. "Help us," a woman's voice rang out, sharp and desperate. Emily's heart sunk. There were others. But the sound didn't reach hope, it ignited the terror in her chest. Danny squeezed her hand tighter, his small shadowed face reflecting the dread coiling in the air. Just ahead, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber, an underground abyss with walls that seemed to pulse. Her instincts roared to flee, but an unnatural light glimmered from within, beckoning yet repelling, a beacon in the dark that promised answers but hinted at death. As if sensing their hesitation, the growl morphed into a shriek, a sound so primal it shattered any resolve Emily had left. "Mom! What is that?" Danny's innocent voice cut through the chaos, but she had no answer. The air crackled, electric with danger, almost tangible. "Stay behind me, Danny," she snapped, forcing her legs to move. They advanced, step by agonizing step toward the light. Each flicker soothed her anxious heart, but her eyes caught sight of the scrawled messages on the walls, a hurried history etched in desperation. "Don't look back," she read aloud, "they take those who do." "Who takes them?" Danny's voice trembled. "Shoo!" Emily recoiled at a sudden scream from the chamber, a flash of movement swallowed by the darkness. The figures were there, dark and menacing, skirting at the edge of the light. Emily's stomach twisted. They were watching. Suddenly, the overhead lights crackled violently, flickering, then all went dark. Fear seized her stomach as silence descended like a heavy blanket. "Danny," she breathed, her heart hammering louder than ever. With a vibrating hum, the walls of the tunnel echoed with whispers, hushed, frantic voices that seemed to speak her name. Emily pressed her palm against her ear, trying to drown them out. But the voices were relentless, reverberating through the darkness. She felt them clawing at her mind. Then, just as she thought she would lose it, the light returned, illuminating the faces. Startling and familiar. The missing. Those she'd read about, the very ghosts of the legends, locked in eternal darkness, eyes wide with silent pleas. "Oh no," Emily gasped, backing away, panic surging through her again. "Danny, we have to go now." But as they turned to flee, the darkness shifted, blocking their way. The growls returned, louder, more menacing. They were trapped, the tunnel swallowing hope whole. With nowhere left to turn, they stood amidst the echoes of fear and dread, as behind them the faded voices began to rise, sweetening the air with promises that no one should ever hear. Time had come for answers, the kind that no one escaped from, the kind she had unknowingly summoned. The light started to flicker again, revealing something deep in the shadows, waiting to draw her in. What was it? "Don't leave me!" Danny cried, clutching her leg tightly. And all Emily could do was grip his hand and resist the urge to listen, because she could hear it now, calling her name. What would it take to break the cycle? Emily felt the air grow thick, wrapping around them like a serpent. Shadows danced just beyond the edge of the light, flicking and shifting, almost tangible. Danny's breath came in quick, panicked bursts, a mirror of her own racing heart. "Mom, what do we do?" His voice wavered, the chill of terror blending with the dampness of the tunnel. She opened her mouth, ready to offer him comfort, but no words formed. Instead, dread lodged in her throat. One of the figures stepped into view. A man, drenched in darkness, eyes hollow and wild, his mouth stretching into an unsettling grin. "Welcome," he rasped, his tone dripping with mockery. "You've finally come to join us." Emily shook her head, her instincts screaming to run. We're not lost. She shouted, trying to project strength she didn't feel. We're just passing through. He chuckled, a sound hollow and cruel, echoing off the walls. You've come to the heart of despair, love. There's no passing through. Not anymore. Danny tugged at her hand, his small fingers trembling. Mom. He whimpered. The man stepped closer, the shadows weaving around him, pulling tight like a shroud. You'll see, little one. They all do. He gestured back into the depths behind him, and the other figures shifted, restless. Emily clenched her son's hand tighter, preparing to pull him back even deeper into the chamber. Suddenly, the chanting began. Low murmurs at first, rising in volume, pressing in around them. Join us, join us. The voices twisted together, overlapping, dripping with a sickening sweetness. Emily. Listen. A voice broke through the cadence. It was familiar but twisted, warped by the desperation of the tunnel. You were warned. Don't let him in. Shut up. The man bellowed, his face distorting with rage. They don't listen, no one does. And then he paused, grinning wider. Then they become a part of the legend. Emily felt the gravity of the chamber pulling at her, the figure before them a nightmare made flesh. His mouth slithered open, and a deep growl resonated, vibrating through her bones, making her want to scream. Mom, please. Danny cried, his small voice breaking her fear. She glanced down at him, his wide, terrified eyes piercing through her fog of panic. This was about more than their escape, it was about protecting him. Get ready to run. She hissed, her voice barely above a whisper. They shuffled backward, inching toward the light, but the growls and whispers intensified, bolstering the darkness. The figures surged forward, encroaching, their hunger palpable, the wall of shadows loomed before them like an impenetrable barrier. In that moment, a burst of adrenaline surged through Emily. She couldn't let them win. She squared her shoulders and shouted the very thing that struck fear into her heart. We're not afraid of you. The figures halted, a palpable silence filling the air. The flicker of light caught the man's face, revealing not a grin but a gaping maw, waiting hungrily. Ah, but you should be, he hissed, just before thrumming shadows dispelled the light with a sudden flicker. The cries of the others erupted around them, a cacophony of faces, pleading and screaming, echoing their own cries for freedom. Emily's heart sank. This wasn't just a nightmare, but a trap set by something ancient. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and with each second, the walls seemed to draw in closer. She steeled her mind, recalling the frantic messages carved into the stone about witnesses, about those who looked back. Danny. Emily turned, gripping his shoulders, forcing their gaze into each other's eyes. We have to run, and we can't look back. No matter what. He nodded, determination battling the fear swirling in his eyes. Emily felt the ground pulse around them. In one fluid motion, she bolted forward, dragging Danny behind her, racing for the flickering light, the shadows howling in fury as they pursued. With every step, the chamber felt alive, as if it were swallowing them whole. But the whispers didn't let up, they clawed at her ears, scratching at her sanity. Join us, stay with us, panic collapsed in her chest, but determination surged above all. They had to break through, they had to escape this nightmare. Just ahead, she glimpsed the entrance again, but it flickered dimly. The light was fading. Run! She screamed, terror smashing through her as the anguished cries behind them reached a fever pitch. The air thickened around them, tangling, trapping them. Closer. They were so close. But the shadows surged, clawing at their backs as if trying to drag them into an abyss of despair. What was behind them? What had they left unturned? Keep going. Emily urged, pushing Danny ahead, but the shadows began to blur and close. Something was reaching out in that instant, she realized in life, sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't what hunts you, but what you might leave behind. The moment she felt the cold breath of darkness trailing her, she took one last desperate glance back and then, everything went black. Light slammed back into existence, blinding Emily. She stumbled forward, feeling Danny jerk beside her, but the world was different now. The shadows were gone, replaced by blinding fluorescent bulbs swinging overhead. They stood in an empty subway station, the chill of the breeze so stark she could see the breath escape her lips in misty puffs. What just happened? Danny's voice was small, innocence wrapped in confusion. The air was still alive with the echoes of that rabid chant, lingering in their minds like a bad dream. She fought the urge to collapse against the cold metal bench. Instead, she surveyed every inch of this new space, anxiety sharpening her senses. Empty advertisements lined the walls, their flashy images faded and peeling, the colors muted and drab. Emily took a shaky breath, turning to Danny. "We need to keep moving. We can't stay here." "But Mom," Danny's voice trembled. "What if they come back?" His question echoed her own fear. What if the figures ached for them still? What if they had crossed over into another trap laid by that monster? "Look," she said, forcing resolve into her tone, "we can't let them catch us. We need to find a way out." She grabbed Danny's hand tightly, feeling the warmth of his small fingers clench around hers. Together, they ventured down the dimly lit corridor, each step resonating loudly, a stark reminder that they were not alone even if the space seemed vacant. Further into the station, the scent morphed. The musty odor of damp concrete collided with a sickly sweet fragrance, like decaying flowers. Emily frowned, instinct nagging at her gut. She scanned the surroundings, noticing something out of place. On the tiled floor, large splatters of a dark, glistening liquid marred the tiles. "Danny, don't touch anything." She pulled him back as he reached to inspect it, eyes wide and curious. "Mom, you said we can't look back. Shouldn't we just go?" "Then let us go." They trudged ahead, heading toward what looked like the lone exit sign glowing at the end of the platform. As they moved closer, the edges of her vision blurred, the shadows lurking just beyond the light. Her heart raced as the whispers began anew, murmuring in the distance just out of reach, taunting them with their longing, their promises. "Join us, stay with us, no." Emily snapped into the space around her. "We're not joining you." Silence. Then, a soft, distorted giggle. Danny recoiled, grasping her arm tighter. "Mom, it's getting louder." Emily's stomach turned. The laughter, no, it had morphed into something darker, more sinister. It wasn't from behind anymore. It was creeping closer. Each step felt like an eternity, time stretching agonizingly as the walls echoed the high-pitched chimes of their steps. Just then, the lights above flickered violently, plunging them briefly into darkness. Emily shouted, thrusting her arms out instinctively to shield Danny. "Stay close," she urged, fear crashing over her like waves. And when the illumination returned, it revealed figures, hunched and twisted, standing just beyond the exit door, their eyes glinting with hunger, expressions that bore the mark of anguish and longing. She froze, pulse pounding in her ears as their silhouettes swayed. Could it be the crew from the tunnel? Had they followed? "Emily!" A voice hissed from the shadows. "Help us!" The line between reality and madness blurred. The tendrils of shadows flickered about their feet, wrapping around Danny's ankles threateningly. "No!" She screamed as she yanked him backward, her mind racing with what came next. But it was futile, the darkness was thickening, reaching, clawing upward. Fear made her throat tight. "Mom! What do we do?" With her heart in her throat, all she could manage was to whisper fiercely, "We have to open the door." They surged forward together, pushing past the silent, malicious figures, racing towards that last flicker of hope, unaware of the horrors that lay beyond the portal. What awaited on the other side would change everything again. But as they reached the exit, a chilling voice echoed through the hallway. "You'll stay with us, sweetheart, forever." In that split second before the door burst open, Emily knew it was going to be worse than she ever imagined. Would they escape this time, or was surrender the only option left? The door swung open, revealing a tunnel cloaked in a suffocating darkness. A gust of wind pushed them forward, making Emily stumble, and Danny nearly slipped from her grasp. Gritting her teeth, she tightened her hold, dragging him behind her, guided only by instinct and desperate urgency. "Come on!" she hissed, urgency sharpening her voice. As they stepped into the suffocating blackness, Emily hoped it was just an empty passageway leading to safety, a quick escape from the memory of twisted figures hunting in the shadows. But the deeper they went, the more the air thickened, weighing down on them. The pungent stench of decay, intensified by the darkness, coiled around their senses, affecting how they breathed. "Where are we going?" Danny's voice quivered again, fear creeping back with each unsettlement in the gloom. "I don't know," she whispered. "But we have to keep moving." Suddenly, the shadows inched closer, curling around them as if alive. Emily's heart raced. Whispers erupted from the void, creating a cacophony of tormenting secrets. "You can't escape. You belong here." Emily turned abruptly, refusing to listen, dragging Danny faster. She had to block them out. The whispers, the voices, they were pulling her thoughts apart, urging her to give in. But she wouldn't let that happen. Not now. Not ever. A flicker of light appeared ahead, almost like a distant star in this consuming darkness. She could see something odd against the tunnel wall. "Danny, look!" As they approached, the source of the light became clearer, but what they witnessed froze Emily in her tracks. A mural, vibrant in its grotesque detail, covered a large section of the wall. It depicted twisted faces, eyes wide and bulging, mouths agape in screams. They all seemed to be reaching toward the same point, a central figure draped in shadow, claws extended, waiting to seize something, or someone. A creeping dread filled her bones. "We need to leave, Danny," she urged, feeling the unease swirl in her gut. "Mom, I think it's watching us." Before she could react, the whispers morphed into a shrill chime. "Join us, stay with us forever." "No!" Emily shouted, fury blooming alongside her fear. "We're not joining you." Then came the silence, thick and suffocating. A moment hung heavy like a stone before the malice lunged. From behind the mural, hands erupted like roots from the earth. They writhed, reaching for Danny, their fingers contorted and grotesque. "Run!" Emily screamed, her voice a raw shriek as she turned, throwing herself into the darkness. They dashed, fleeing down the tunnel, the stench of rot close behind them. The wails of despair echoed, footfalls racing, pounding like a symphony of dread along the walls. It felt as though the darkness itself chased them, its breath hot on their necks, an unwavering predator. "Mom! I can't run." Danny gasped, struggling to keep pace. Emily could feel the fear radiating from him, but she knew they had to keep going, keep fighting. "Just a little further, Danny. We can do this." Suddenly, as if responding to her plea, the oppressive darkness parted, revealing another faint glow ahead. A door, cracked open, light spilling from its seams. Was it a way out? Or a deeper trap? As they approached, the whispers returned, sharper, more urgent. "Leave the boy, Emily. You can be free, you can be whole." Emily hesitated, fear clenching her heart. Would leaving Danny behind mean freedom for her, or destruction for him? With a surge of resolve, she pushed the door open, the light surrounding them like a shield. But cold fingers reached through the threshold, clawing at her, pulling, demanding. "Danny! Stay close." As the door creaked open wider, revealing what lay beyond, Emily's stomach knotted with the realization that whatever waited would demand a terrible choice. What awaited them was not just a new place, but the confrontation of the choice that could cost them everything, including each other. The doorway swung fully open, and a blinding light surged forth, illuminating a room scattered with remnants of once normal life. Old newspapers lay crumpled on the floor like discarded dreams, their headlines soaked in dark tales of missing persons and unexplained phenomena. A sense of wrongness seeped into the edges of Emily's awareness as her heart raced. Mom, what's happening? Danny's voice trembled, breaking through the haze of panic that enveloped her. I don't know, she admitted, blinking against the harsh glow. But we can't linger here. Around them, shadows flitted just out of reach of the light, writhing like smoke caught in a wind. They seemed to breathe and pulse with a life of their own. Emily stepped inside, pulling Danny with her, but the moment they crossed the threshold, the doors slammed shut behind them, sealing them in. The air was heavy and tasted of rust. Outlined by the stark glow, an old television flickered to life in the corner, dismissing their presence as though the room was merely a set piece in a living nightmare. A grainy image morphed into focus, a news report revealing the stories of those who had vanished. The faces of long-lost souls stared blankly from the screen, eyes full of sorrow that seemed all too real. Mom, turn it off. Danny cried, squeezing his eyes shut, as if the images were too much to bear. Emily's heart sank at the gnawing dread clawing at her insides. She turned the dial on the television, but the images didn't change. Instead, the volume rose, distorting into a screeching chorus of despair. Stay with us, you can't leave, join us. As she backed away, Emily collided with something solid. She spun around, only to find a shadowy figure looming just behind her, its form vague yet unmistakably human. It was a woman, her face obscured by a tangle of hair that seemed to writhe like serpents. They want you, the woman rasped, voice gravelly, like stones grinding together. Stay and you will be saved. In that moment of dread, instinct kicked in. Danny, run! She shouted, snatching her son's hand. But as they turned to escape, a deafening wail pierced the air. It felt as if the very walls were alive, screaming their anguish. The shadows twisting about the room surged toward them, reaching with grasping fingers that threatened to snatch them away. No! Emily flung herself against the door, pounding on it with frantically shaking hands. The wood felt like slick ice, unyielding. She could hear the sound of Danny's hiccuped breaths behind her, could feel the sheer terror radiating from him. Mom! I can't breathe. He gasped, the encroaching darkness forcing its way in, like a hungry beast, and then, in a moment suspended in time, the air shifted. With a roar, the shadows receded just enough for Emily's eyes to catch sight of something glimmering to the right. A small box sat on a table, wrapped in intricate detailing that seemed oddly out of place amid the horror. Curiosity and desperation mingled in her mind. Danny, hold on! She shouted, racing toward the box. If it had something to offer, it could be their way out. As she reached for it, she felt a surge of energy pulse through her fingers, a crackle of electricity that screamed for release. In that second, the whispers intensified, blending into a frenzy. Open it! Open it! Join us or perish! With trembling hands, Emily pried the box open. A luminous mist poured from it, swirling into the air. But just as the mist grew, so did a thunderous roar from the shadows. The room seemed to quake, threatening to collapse around them. Before she could react, a vision crashed over her, a glimpse of faces she recognized among the screams, of people she thought lost to time. They reached for her, calling out with desperate cries. Emily! Don't let go! Danny's voice was sharp, slicing through her daze. And for a heartbeat, she felt the pull of choice, of freedom, of terrifying renunciation. What did the whispers truly want? What lay in the depths of that shimmering mist? She had to decide, fast. Survival was skirting along the edges of her grasp, but what was the cost of escape? Would it claim new victims in their stead, or would they both be lost forever? The shadows surged toward them once more, ready to consume. Would the decision be too late? The moment she opened the box, the mist enveloped her and Danny, wrapping around them like a deep fog. Emily felt a burning heat, a strange comfort mixed with terror. Faces flickered within the mist, the lost souls, the forgotten. They seemed to beg for her attention as if promising her powers she could not begin to understand. Mom! Danny's voice quivered, pulling her back to the dire reality slamming against her mind. The shadows crept closer, their whispers growing louder, piercing through Emily's resolve. "What is happening? Hang on!" she cried, forcing her eyes back to the glowing mist. A heavy feeling settled in her gut, like a weight gaining momentum. Time felt warped and moving too fast. "Join us, become one with us." The voices swirled into a sinister harmony, beckoning her deeper into the abyss. The warmth of the mist turned chilly, prickling her skin like the icy fingers of someone long gone. Danny's grip tightened. "I don't like this, Mom." His eyes darted around as panic threatened to spill over. "Stay close," she barked, tearing her gaze away from the visions. She looked back at the television. The flickering images had intensified. A family was portrayed, their narrative entwined with sorrow as they searched for a missing daughter. The father, tears shining in his eyes, became a haunting reflection of her own desperation. Trapped, they had become a part of the very thing threatening to claim them. "What are we going to do?" Danny looked up at her, his small face twisted with fear. She took a deep breath, searching for a sliver of rational thought. They needed to escape this nightmare. "We find the door," she whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. But the shadows were closing in. As if sensing her thoughts, the darkness groaned and writhed. They began to shape into figures, individuals who had met tragic ends, each face striking a memory not of lost strangers, but of people she recognized. Family members, neighbors, even an old friend from childhood. Each one looked at her with hollow eyes, mouths opening and closing, their silent screams echoing around her, urging her to stay. "Mom, please." Danny pulled her hand, fear bursting behind his voice. "Not now, Danny," she snapped, struggling against the pull of the shadows. "We need to go. We have to keep moving." She pushed towards the door she could only hope still stood behind her, but when she glanced back, panic gripped her heart. The box on the table, once inviting with swirling light, had turned pitch black. The mist was receding, but in its place, a thick, shadowy net was dropping from the ceiling to shape, dripping like oil. Join them. The whispers turned to a chorus of low growls, building into a cacophonous symphony. The figures started moving, creeping closer to her and Danny in a grotesque dance of desperation. With every instinct screaming at her to flee, she turned back to Danny. "We run on 3. 1, 2. Before she could say 3, the ground beneath them trembled. The box exploded with a resonant burst of light, but not in a way that freed them. It ignited something. The room transformed into an endless vortex of shadow and light, twirling around like darkness chasing its prey. "Mom!" Danny screamed just before the ground fell away beneath them. They plunged into a pit of nothingness, their hands clutching each other desperately. Emily's heart pounded, an echoing rhythm of fear and determination as they spiraled deeper into the unknown. Amidst the chaos, a realization hit her with a deafening clarity. The whispers still beckoned, but now they were mixed with her own voice, chaotic and broken. "Mom, help!" The fear gripping her escalated. Terrifying visions enveloped her again, past lives entangled with lost narratives, traps laid waiting for the next unsuspecting soul. What fate awaited them in this dark underworld? And could she piece together the fragments of her own reality before it dissolved forever? Darkness loomed ahead, a path yet to be carved, and with every ounce of strength, she clung to Danny, praying for a miracle to guide them through. But miracles often come at a price, and some pay dearly. What remnants of hope would be left once they reached the bottom? Emily and Danny tumbled through an abyss, gripping each other tight. The world around them seemed to stretch and twist, light and dark melding into shapes that danced along the periphery of their vision. Each second felt like an eternity, each heartbeat a reminder of the fragility of their lives. "Hold on!" Emily shouted, though the sound barely escaped her trembling lips. She felt the coldness creep into their skin, chilling her resolve. Shadows wriggled at the edges of their surroundings, whispering insidiously, slipping into her mind. Suddenly, they landed hard on a cold, damp surface. The impact jolted them, pulling Emily momentarily from the clutches of the dark noise surrounding them. She shook her head, trying to regain her focus, heart racing as she scanned the area. They were in a dimly lit subway station. Flickering fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, illuminating the graffiti-scarred walls. An eerie silence loomed, interrupted only by the distant echo of water dripping somewhere hidden. "Where are we?" Danny's voice quivered, his wide eyes darting around. "I don't know," she replied, panic twisting in her gut. It felt as if the walls themselves would come alive, eager to swallow them whole. "What if those shadows come after us?" The tremor in his voice made her stomach drop. "Then we'll run. Just like before." Emily forced a determined smile, yet dread gnawed at her soul. She couldn't let her son see her fear. Not now. The shadows within the subway began to take form, casting elongated shapes that lurched toward them. Emily's heartbeat quickened. "Where the hell do we go?" She stepped closer to the exit signs above, their red glow beckoning them forward through the mounting darkness. Yet what lay beyond? She hesitated for a moment, recollecting the whispers that had taunted her earlier. Even if they somehow escaped this place, would the next stop lead to safety or hell? "We need to find a way out," she urged, tugging at Danny's wrist, but the boy stood still, eyes locked on a shimmer in the darkness. "Mom! Look!" A faint flicker of light illuminated a figure up ahead. Instinct kicked in, sending a cold shiver down Emily's spine. "Danny, stay here," she directed, her voice cracking. But Danny was already moving, drawn toward the glow as if entranced. "No, Danny!" She lunged toward him, panic overriding thought. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a gaunt face twisted in a haunting smile, eyes empty and sorrowful. "Come closer, dear child, I can help you." Its voice slithered like smoke. Emily's heart raced. It wasn't just the shadows or the mists winding around them. This was something more insidious, something that could sap the strength from her very soul. "Danny, run!" she screamed, her voice cutting through the embrace of darkness. But Danny stood frozen, illuminated by that sickly, phantom light. "Mom, it's okay." "No," she shouted. "It's not." With a burst of desperation, she rushed forward, shoving Danny aside. The figure reached out, long fingers stretching toward them like claws. Just as she thought they were lost, something shifted. The walls of the subway shook, and the lights flickered violently. "Join us," the visage rasped, but now the shadows drew back, distorting as fear radiated from Emily. "Let my son go," she shouted, trembling. "You won't take him." The subway shook violently, as if the earth itself was responding to her fury. The shadows trembled, their once commanding presence fading, revealing the fear they had hidden. Emily stepped forward, adrenaline surging through her veins. "You've fed on fear long enough." But the walls groaned in protest, shadows clawing desperately to reclaim their depths. The flickering light was fading, and as she looked at Danny, his face twisted in confusion, another thought struck her. What if we don't belong here? They had to leave this place. Whatever nightmare lay beyond the flickering light couldn't be worse than this, but as she reached for Danny's hand, the silence shattered, and a cacophony of whispers erupted, an anguished wail rising from the depths, pulling them backward. There was something, or someone, lurking just beneath the surface. Something ancient, something watching, something waiting. And just as the shadows lunged, a terrifying scream echoed through the station. Emily. Would this be the end, or a twisted invitation to a deeper horror? The choice was about to be made, and the clock was ticking. Emily felt the ground shatter beneath her feet as the shadows lunged, their howls reverberating in her ears. Danny's presence next to her flickered like a candle in a storm, teetering between the suffocating light and the swallowing dark. She seized him by the arm, desperation pulsing through her. Don't look back. We run. She barked, adrenaline igniting her senses. They sprinted down the platform, the breath of cool air rushing past them, each step a small battle against the oppressive gloom. The whispers taunted them, a symphony of voices speaking in fragmented phrases. You can't escape, join us, he's ours. She dared a glance over her shoulder. The figure wavered in the shadows, its smile grotesque and unyielding. A thought clawed at her mind. What if fleeing only led them deeper into its lair? The corridor stretched endlessly before them, the fluorescent lights flickering uncontrollably, casting their own shadows that twisted into grotesque shapes. Just ahead, a flickering door stood ajar, beckoning. "Mom, wait!" Danny gasped, slowing just a fraction. "No!" she yelled, whirling around. "We can't stop." But, as she turned, something caught her breath. The walls pulsated like lungs. They leaned forward as if the subway station itself was alive, hungry for their fear. "Mom, what if we're trapped?" Danny's voice quivered. "We won TB. We're not giving in." She tightened her grip on his arm, pulling him to the door that stood like a sentry, promising salvation or doom. As they neared, the whispers intensified, pleading, demanding, furious. "Leave while you can, don't trust her, she's the reason you're here." "What? Who're they talking about?" Emily shouted back, the echo of her voice swallowed by the encroaching darkness. The air thickened, pressing down on them. She pushed through the door into a narrow passageway that seemed carved from shadows. Muffled sounds echoed ahead, a dull thud like a heartbeat. "Mom, I'm scared," Danny whimpered, pressing close to her side. The ancient voices want you, Danny, only you know." She screamed, her voice splintering as a wave of mortification crashed over her. "They can't have you." Through the dimness, a light flickered rhythmically at the end of the corridor, pulsing like a remote star. Emily felt a stirring of hope fused with fear. Maybe it led to freedom, but as they moved, the shadows twisted around them, elongating, biting at their heels. The figure emerged closer, its gaunt face carved from terror. "You can't outrun destiny, run!" Emily shouted, breaking into a full sprint, dragging Danny behind her. They stumbled into the flickering light, revealing a dilapidated station that felt oddly familiar. Old posters lined the walls, faded images of faces that seemed to gaze into her soul. Memories flickered, whispers blending with the air. "Mom, it looks like the one in our neighborhood," Danny said, his eyes wide. Her heart raced, not memories of the past, but something darker. "We need to get out." As they turned to leave, a deafening crash echoed through the tunnel. The air sizzled, vibrating with an electric energy, blasting a wave of heat. The light began to dim. "Mom!" Danny cried, tugging her arm. She could feel at the pull of that hunger, the figures swirling back into play, hungry again. "No, I won't let them take you," yet as she grabbed Danny's hand tighter, the walls crushed inward, shadows swirling, a storm of whispered promises ensnaring them. "Join us," Emily blinked against the darkness. A blinding flash erupted, and suddenly she was transported back to the subway entrance, menacing and bleak, the world morphed around her. She gulped air, horror washing over her. "What just happened?" she murmured, both terrified and confused. Rocky footsteps echoed behind her, a new threat emerging. Heart racing, she turned to see the gaunt figure lurching closer, no longer smiling. "Together forever," it rasped, malice dripping from every syllable. Had they truly escaped, or had they only exchanged one nightmare for another? As the figure advanced, Emily gripped Danny's hand tighter. "We need to find another way." But where? Would they go next, and what awaited them in the undefined future? The answer lingered just out of reach, hidden within the pulsating shadows, waiting to unveil itself. Emily felt time warp as the figure loomed closer, darkness clinging to it like a shroud. The gaunt face, twisted with insatiable hunger, was a cruel reminder that they were still very much in danger. "We have to move," she urged Danny, yanking him away and plunging down the nearest staircase. The stairs spiraled like a corkscrew into an abyss, each step pushing them deeper into the unknown. Shadows flickered, creeping through cracks in the concrete, whispering promises of despair. "Stay with me, Danny," she whispered, though her voice trembled with fear. When they reached the bottom, the air became stale, cloying, like mold clinging stubbornly to an old memory. Emily blinked against the dimness, spotting an old service door ajar, emitting a faint glow. There. We can make it, she called, compulsively glancing back at the emergence of the figure, now sprinting after them. Danny gave a shaky nod, determination filling his small frame as they dashed towards the door. Every beat of Emily's heart thundered in her ears, reminding her of the past horrors they faced: the shadows, the whispers. Inside, the room was filled with remnants of lives interrupted. Old photographs hung crookedly on the walls, their subjects gazing wide-eyed, as if still trapped in their most vulnerable moments. "Why are they all staring like that?" Danny asked, his voice shrill with fear. "The shadows, they want to keep us here," she replied, glancing back at the door, which shivered upon a sudden knock as the figure pounded to gain entry. "We can't let that happen." As they surveyed the room, a glimmer caught Emily's eye. In the center was a dusty mirror, its surface marred but still reflecting their terrified faces. "Wait," she whispered, instinct pulling her closer. "Maybe we can use it." "Use what?" Danny asked, confusion plastered on his face. "If they want to consume us, maybe we can fight back." She tapped the glass, wishing for a path, a way out. "Sometimes, a reflection can reveal what isn't seen," she murmured, commanding her pulse to steady. The air thickened, and shadows swirled menacingly around them, the whispers growing louder. "Join us, become one, Mom." Danny's voice was laden with panic, but before she could respond, a bright light exploded from the mirror. It pulsed like a heartbeat, illuminating the faces of the trapped. A mosaic of despair, their silent screams a plea for liberation. "Hold on!" Emily shouted, gripping Danny tightly as the light engulfed them. The room quaked, shadows distorting and warping under the brilliance. The air was electric, charged with the haunting murmurs. The figures in the mirror surged outward, their expressions mixing with Emily's resolve. "We will not be taken. We choose freedom." With that declaration, the mirror shattered, sending brilliant shards spiraling out, creating a protective barrier between them and the encroaching darkness. They dashed through the remnants, propelled by an energy forged from despair yet fueled by hope. Emerging on the other side, they stumbled onto a platform bathed in bright fluorescent light. "Where are we?" Danny looked around, or replacing his fear. Emily surveyed their surroundings. The subway station felt familiar, but something was different. The legends, she realized, the stories we heard. A voice echoed softly, not menacing, but sweet. "You have faced the darkness and chosen the light. Find your way home." "What does that mean?" Danny called, eyes wide with confusion. "It means we broke the cycle." Emily felt warmth flood her heart, the weight of fear finally lifting. She grasped Danny's hand, the connection between them grounding her. "Look." Danny pointed toward the exit sign glowing brighter than before. "It's time to go." As Emily rushed forward with Danny at her side, the shadows behind them wailed in defeat, their grasp slipping. "You'll never take him," she called back, the resolve burning within her. Together, they burst through the doors, feeling the cool air rush over them like a baptism. They emerged onto the city streets, back to the cacophony of urban life, the sky a vast, beautiful blue above them. Normalcy was all around: people, cars, the world moving on as if nothing had happened. Emily turned to Danny, tears blurring her vision. "We made it, baby. We're safe." "Mom," he said softly, still wide-eyed, "will it come back?" "No," she assured him, hugging him tightly. "We faced the legends, and they lost. They can't touch us anymore." With that, the darkness dwindled in the corners of her mind, replaced with the promise of love and resilience. They walked hand in hand, comforted by another's presence, ready to face whatever memories remained, knowing they had conquered their fears together. As they faded into the heartbeat of the city, the echoes of the past transformed into whispers of hope, reminding them that freedom comes with the courage to face the darkness. This is it, the beginning of their new chapter, a solid resolve in the face of the urban legends they had conquered. But remember, dear friends, these tales never truly end. Make sure to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories, where we dive even deeper into the unknown. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support means everything. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. We want to hear what you think, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.